Damn it. All right. Everyone, and welcome to Not Your Father's Movies, a podcast where we talk about old movies, new movies, movies that mean a lot to us, movies that we want to show our kids, and movies that are quintessentially dad movies that belong on the Dad Hall of Fame. To talk about this, I am Jesse.
I'm Vito.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Dave.
All right, and we are here to talk about 2017's It, originally written by Stephen King. I don't know when that was published, but it was sometime in the crazy 80s.
Yeah, definitely crazy 80s. I also don't have a list for it because, you know, I did a lot of research into this movie and completely neglected the book. I don't know if this shows a personal bias or simply because maybe I was lazy and trying to run down exactly where every single one of these child stars went before and after this movie was exhausting and took more time than this justifies. So I do want to say it definitely was published in the 80s-ish.
Early 80s?
Please, someone correct us. I'm not going to continue guessing at this. We all have computers open in front of us.
I'm going to say 83.
Oh, Jesse, Mike says 83. What's your bet?
Hold on. No, it's got to be. I'm going to go with 84.
Okay, Dave.
I think 85.
Okay, hang on. It's coming up. 1986.
Oh!
All right. So published in 1986. There's obviously like the super famous TV miniseries that was made with Tim Curry in the role as Pennywise. We are not going to talk about that simply because most of us have not watched it, and it's really long and old, and I don't have time for that. Mike, weigh in. Do you have time for that?
I don't.
Yeah, Jesse, you got time for that shit?
I don't have time for that.
Exactly. Dave?
I'd venture to say the same.
We have an accord.
My conjecture is indeed ain't nobody got time for that shit.
It's just a hypothesis, but I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, I don't have any way to prove it. I can't prove it. Anyway, This, though, what
we are here to talk about the 2017 It. You know what? I'm not going to tell you about it. Vito, you got to tell us about it.
Okay, I'd love to tell you about it. I'm champing at the bit to tell you about it. So this is it in 2017.
Keep champing at the bit.
Should I champ or should I talk?
No, just champ.
Wait, are you talking about it or are you talking about it?
Well, it's going to be really weird if I just champ.
Champ on it.
There's just going to be a lot of sounds of chewing. I can do chewing. Do you guys want me to do chewing? Don't say yes. I don't want to do chewing.
Yes, do chewing.
Please don't make me
do
like
chewing. Not Your Father's ASMR podcast. I don't know about that.
It's like super unpleasant.
I'm really uncomfortable with this.
So there's a few episodes. There's ASMR Vito eating oatmeal. And there's ASMR Vito eating broccoli.
There you go.
And then ASMR Vito eating stewed cabbage. Just to get all the different kind of textures that I can think of right now.
Yeah.
ASMR of just somebody saying, "Hi, hungry, I'm dad." Over and over.
Hi, hungry, I'm dead. Hi, hungry, I'm dead.
Michael already made that, I think.
If you look at Mike's private YouTube channel. Anyway, though, about this movie. Okay, so it's technically, upon its release, it was just called It. Upon the release of It Chapter 2, it was retitled It Chapter 1. Bad move on their part. It's just It from 2017. It's directed by Andy Muschietti, who is, I believe, an Argentine-born filmmaker. Prior to this, he had done a lot of shorts, but only one theatrically released film called Mama, which I don't think is a very successful movie, but I think shows a lot of, promise. And then he did It Chapter 2 after this, and then he's been announced for the Flash movie. So he hasn't gone anywhere really outside of this or done much. He's a very young, kind of new filmmaker.
How did he get this movie?
Well, Mama did kind of have a lot of buzz to it. He was a really new name. He did get this movie because there were two directors that had passed or had been kind of let go from it.
Okay.
One
Maybe
in the
that's
very
it, too.
early stages of directing, in the early stages of talking about it, whose name I can't pull up right now, but I'm sure someone else could, if they wanted to. I just don't want to. The second one was Kerry Joji Fukunaga, from True Detective fame.
Yeah.
And he actually had control of the
fun.
project for a long time. And the way he describes his letting go was they just each saw this as a different movie and they went different ways. So a lot of his influence and writing is still here in the movie. But from other reports, it sounds like he really wanted to go a little bit further into the Bev Marsh character, specifically some of the stuff with her dad. And the studio was really scared by that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that.
Rightfully so. I
don't want to see any more of that, man.
No, it's the perfect amount in this movie.
Yeah.
But it has 3 credited writers. We have Chase Palmer, Kerry Fukunaga, and then Gary Dauberman. Chase Palmer, not known for almost anything. He has this movie. He wrote 1 episode of The Alienist, the 2nd season. And then he has an upcoming theatrically released movie also starring Bill Skarsgård called Naked Singularity sometime next year or this year. It's kind of unclear.
It's about time?
I don't know.
Huh.
I mean, there's nothing that's really known about this. It has like a stupid hand-drawn poster, and it just says Naked Singularity. I think there's like a sword.
Interesting.
So who knows whatever this is? Maybe we'll be reviewing it in like a year and saying like, this thing is amazing. But then Kerry Fukunaga, so he started out with Sin Nombre, which is a really excellent foreign film. And then he did Jane Eyre, which is probably the weirdest thing he could have done after that.
Yeah.
Then the first season of True Detective, which is probably still best known for. And then the limited series on Netflix, Maniac, his movie for Netflix, Beast of No Nation. And then the soon-to-be-released No Time to Die, the new James Bond movie. So, weird career. Don't know what this guy's doing.
Dipping into a lot of places.
Yeah. And then Gary Dauberman, who is mostly just been involved with the Conjuring universe series of movies. And that actually kind of loops into something I want to talk about in the way this movie approaches horror in a very modern sense. I mean, he's been involved specifically with the Annabelle movies, but also The Nun and a few other horror projects that have been around. So this doesn't have a lot of pedigree, which is really strange for a movie that made $700 million.
123 million opening weekend.
It's amazing.
In the U.S.
That's amazing.
It just blew everything out of the water, every horror record ever.
But I mean, can you guys remember in like the summer of 2017, every time that they would have a new It thing, we'd just be like, what? I want to see it.
Yeah.
Like, this is so, I want to see the killer clown.
It was really cool.
But then I don't want to.
In terms of budget and stuff, it had a budget of $35 million and ends up making $701.8 million at the box office.
Yeah.
That's like a 2,000% increase. I can't do math right now. 20 times. It's 20 times what it is.
It's one Bezos more money than they put into it. So
that unit of currency.
Exactly.
One Bezos.
One Bezos.
Un Bezos and one Dalmatians.
Yeah.
So just to sort of wrap up, so something I did want to bring up real quick when we begin to talk about this movie though is this cast that they've picked. So we have Jaden Martell, Jeremy Ray Taylor, Sophia Lillis, Finn Wolfhard, Chosen Jacobs, Jake Dylan Grazer, Wyatt Oleff, and Bill Skarsgård. So that's the Losers Club and Pennywise. These are all very young kid actors, more or less known. I think Chosen Jacobs has probably done the least, with just some appearances on Hawaii Five-0, Castle Rock, and God Friended Me. And then maybe the most known is either Sophia Lillis or Jaden Martell. I mean, Jaden Martell started out in St. Vincent, Midnight Special, Book of Henry. He's in multiple episodes of Masters of Sex and Knives Out, where he plays the far-right troll son.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, maybe Sophia Lillis, I mean, she's in Sharp Objects. She's in that Nancy Drew movie. She's in Gretel and Hansel. It came out last year. But then we have Finn Wolfhard, who's, obviously Stranger Things Finn Wolfhard. We have Jack Dylan Grazer, who's the crippled boy in Shazam. Wyatt Oleff, who's in 2 Guardians of the Galaxies as a young Chris Pratt. And then Bill Skarsgård, who is just making his way steadily through Hollywood. I wish he could get more work. But he still has a pretty impressive resume, either with being in Anna Karenina. This year's The Devil All the Time, where I think he's probably one of the best parts of it. And Atomic Blonde, Assassination Nation, he's very good in. Yeah, so it's a pretty interesting cast. And I think that maybe in 15 years, when we look back on it, we might kind of want to highlight some more things about it.
Yeah.
What's up, Mike?
I just want to note, Bill Skarsgård is the son of Stellan Skarsgård, who is known for just about everything.
Also being in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, also in the Marvel Universe, but probably most known for his role as the Duke in Cinderella.
Is he most known for that?
Oh, I think he's most known for that.
Like, most known. I might even say, Mike, I'm so sorry. Maybe one of the possible dads in Mamma Mia. Maybe more so.
Oh, really?
Maybe more so.
Really?
Maybe more so.
Maybe
more
probably
so.
not.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing that he's done is probably anywhere near the critical responses.
He's of Cinderella renown.
Yes,
Cinderella.
when he dies, it'll just be like Stellan Skarsgård, Cinderella.
Yeah. Right.
Along with Rob Stark.
Yes.
Yeah. Just wanted to note that. Put that out
Along
there.
with Rob. You couldn't even remember Richard Madden's name.
His name is Rob Stark.
Rob Stark plays Prince Charming in Cinderella.
Yeah. Pretty much.
But also his brother is Alexander Skarsgård,
Yeah.
who's obviously, I don't know. The first thing I think of, it's unfortunate, but it's like Tarzan. That stupid live action movie of Tarzan.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You guys remember that?
I didn't see that.
I didn't either, but I just remember it.
I remember it came out.
Alexander Skarsgård is in that?
Yeah, he's
Tarzan. Wow.
Well, because he's like 6'2",
Yeah.
and cannot stop like sloping his shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, easy call, I guess.
Oh, I just remembered what that movie is. Yeah, that movie sucks. Really bad.
It's like one of those movies where
that's
you see like
unfortunate.
Alexander Skarsgård and like Margot Robbie, and you go like, "Oh, this is probably really good."
And
then
it's just not.
It must be terrible. I still have
That's
no time
amazing
for
that
it.
they got him and her for that.
I mean, money talks.
Yeah.
Money talks. Yeah.
Just throwing up at it.
That was a really bizarre movie because Tarzan starts out in London as like all sophisticated in a suit and slowly makes his way back to the jungle. It was just strange. Like, if you're going to start with Tarzan, you start in the jungle. Anyway, maybe let's not get into Tarzan.
But last thing I wanted to mention on all of this, last person I wanted to point out was the cinematography by Chung Hoon Chung, who has worked with Chan-wook Park a lot and is also, I mean, he's done Old Boy, Lady Vengeance Stoker, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, The Handmaiden, The Current War, Zombieland Double Tap, and Edgar Wright's upcoming Last Night in Soho. He's a very talented, skilled cinematographer.
Yeah.
And I think that that those influences specifically, like I was thinking when I knew that it was Chung Hoon Chung doing this and thinking about Old Boy and Stoker actually too, I was kind of watching it and I'm going, wow, no, yeah, it's pretty clear. I think I probably should have guessed that. His use of color is so specific. The way that he frames things, like everything is so deeply colorful and desaturized. And I don't know how that is. But he manages to project this image of dread very, very easily on the movie. So that's all I had for sort of summing up, you know, who made this movie and where they came from and what they're known for.
So this is it, guys. This is the whole thing. This is a story that takes place in a small little town called Derry, Maine. It starts out with Georgie and his brother Bill, and Bill makes a little boat for Georgie. Georgie takes it out to play and then has his arm bitten off by a very scary clown and is pulled into the sewers.
That happened to me once or twice.
Yeah, I think it happens to everyone as a kid eventually.
Not me.
You didn't lose any arms to a clown?
Wait, you can grow back arms?
I was actually born with 4 arms.
Whoa.
Lost 2, but it was a really fortunate break considering all the sewer clowns that I encountered.
That's a really good call. I
Yeah,
also was born with
all
4
right.
arms, and I only lost 2, which leaves me with my 2 arms.
Yeah.
Oh. Jesse, how many arms were you born with?
At least 10. I had a lot of clown encounters.
You too.
That's a lot of clowns you can count.
You 10.
So Georgie encounters a clown, as one does, and then Bill wants to figure out what happened to Georgie. So with the help of his friend Richie and Eddie and Stanley, they go to a tunnel and are too cowardly to really go in, but they meet Ben, who is being chased by a bunch of bullies, and then they kind of all unite because they're the losers club. They're always being bullied, right? And then in that same summer, there are 2 other characters who come in, Beverly and Mike, and that kind of forms the entirety of this losers club, a bunch of 12 or 11-year-old kids. Bill is kind of obsessed with finding Georgie again, and around the same time, all of the losers club are having individualistic encounters with a strange entity. Some of them are seeing it as a clown, somebody sees it as like a woman who's all crooked coming off the wall. Really weird stuff. All of them see it except for Richie, notably. They try to figure out what to do. They figure out the clown is in this one house. They go try to do something about it. Beverly stabs it. It runs away in fear. And then they have no idea what to do because that was so terrifying that they all kind of split up. But then the clown kidnaps Beverly, takes it down to its lair. They follow it down there, beat the shit out of it. And that's the end of it.
Beautifully summarized. My goodness, that's true. They do beat the shit out of it. Man,
and it's arguably one of the most satisfying scenes I've ever seen in any horror movie.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it is different in the book, but I'm not going to be one of those guys that pushes glasses up nose and says, "Well, it was better in the book." It actually. It is cool in the book. It's definitely weirder and trippier and a holdover maybe from some 70s drugs that Stephen King may or may not have ingested.
Yeah. And to be clear, what happens in the book is way stranger. When they go down there, it's not a clown anymore. It's showed its true form, which is a giant spider. And it's got these crazy lights that are kind of hypnotizing people, I think. It's kind of hard to understand what's going on. But anyway, instead of all the kids beating the shit out of it, it's just Bill, the main protagonist, the charismatic leader. He goes up and then he metaphorically bites its tongue in something called the Ritual of Chud, I think. And it gets really weird.
Chud.
Yeah.
It does get really strange.
It's hurtled through eternity and sees a turtle on the way. And the whole time...
That's a big thing.
Yeah, the turtle is a huge thing. And the clown is trying to make Bill give up. Bill doesn't, by sheer force of will, which kind of suffocates it. And then it kind of goes to the center of the earth. And that's it in the book. That's all that. It's very weird.
Well, it's because sort of the climax of the it in the book is really tied to the second climax of them as adults. It really, they try and work in tandem because it's such a, I mean, the book is over 1,100 pages long. It's so massive and so long because he's telling a story of childhood trauma mixed in with how adults deal with it. And so the smart way to do that is what he does, is that he tries to combine the two stories. He introduces the adult story like a third of the way through?
Yeah. I think it's about a third. You definitely feel like you get to know the kids in the kid world and get presented with the situation of the monster appearing, and I think even to some extent like the legend before it shifts into the adult world too, and you realize where it's going.
All right, having just read it this summer,
please tell me.
The adults actually get introduced earlier as kind of like introductions to the character, and they keep having flashbacks to their childhood. So they're almost there, but I think you're right. I think like a third of the way through, the story starts focusing on them a little more. They actually start having a story rather than just as an introduction, like flashback sort of scene. But yeah, the adults are there like all the way through the book. They almost have, it's almost like, here's little Richie, here's big Richie, here's little Bill, here's big Bill, that sort of stuff. It constantly switches back and forth. It's
kind of like Tolkiening it a little bit. I like what he does here. What this movie does, Tolkiening. I mean, like what J.R.R. Tolkien would do, would constantly flashing back to this.
Tolkien.
No, Mike. We're not getting derailed on Tolkien. All right, it was a cast-off reference that I just made to like make an entry point in. No, I always like the flashing back and then moving back and forth between the story, because in the book it makes it seem very unified and very whole. The story is being told at once, which is how you would tell your life story. For instance, if you had been terribly traumatized as a child and then dealing with your experiences as an adult, you wouldn't be like, this happened to me, therefore I am this. It's more like these things are currently occurring to me and I'm reacting to them in real time in my adult life. And I really appreciated that that's the route that he chose to take.
Vito, you came into contact with this story through the book first, right?
Yes, I did. My dad, shout out to my dad, as we will do a lot in this show. But he used to tell me the plots of movies. I had this, backing up. This is the beginning of the story. Here. We had this tent that we set up in my room. And my dad would sometimes come over and we'd stay up late at night and he would tell me about movies because he knew I loved them. And he also knew I couldn't see these movies, but they mattered to him. So what he would do is he would summarize the movie, tell me the story of the movie, and never tell me what the movie was. And what I had to do was, as I got older, trying to figure out through his plot summaries what movie it was that he was talking about. And as we go along in this series, this is the first one. This is the first one that's going to come up. This is Vito's Tent Nights right here.
Wow.
Because there are multiple ones of these that I had to figure out for myself.
I'm really glad that you explained what Vito's Tent Nights were before you said the phrase.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
I'm just saying. I'm glad you explained. Like, that's cool.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
I appreciate
These are nice stories about my dad. You dirtballs.
Yes, they are. They are. I'm really looking forward to the rest of them.
Jesse,
but I'm also really glad you explained it.
I really want to hear more about Vito's Tent Nights. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, well, it's here, and it's a beautiful sentiment. You dick. Anyway,
do you recall when you connected this story? When you put together what it was?
I did, and that's actually the first time I read it.
Okay.
How old were you?
I was 18 when I figured out kind of what it was he was talking, because he talked about this story about this demon that haunted a small town.
Okay.
And it would eat the children of the town. And the way that he told the story was really about playing up the demonic aspects of it and the way that he would hunt children and torment children. And finally, when I was really trying to get a grasp on like what this thing looked like to cement it in my imagination, like almost towards the end of the story, before he told me about the final standoff, he said, and it was a clown. And I had built up this image in my head of what the demon would be. And it was, of course, it was huge and monstrous because I'm a teenager. I have a limited imagination about these things. And I'm just imagining like a hulking beast. And then he says it's a clown. And that detonated something really deep in me. Just like, oh, that's so much scarier than what I had ever imagined.
Yeah.
I would have never imagined this beast as a clown.
That's a fascinating way to introduce it. Wait to the very end to give the actual image of the monster.
Yeah. It's like if you watch Jaws, but they never mentioned that it's as if you never knew there was such a thing as a shark.
Yeah.
And there was something lurking in the deep. Yeah. And then they showed you a shark.
Yeah.
After you watch this devastation, like if you were to watch the opening scene of Jaws and had no concept of a shark, that would be so much more terrifying. Because you're like, I don't know what's happening.
Sure.
Why is that woman being thrown around in the water? And that's how I came to it, was with this concept of the scariest thing I could ever imagine. Also, it's a clown.
Wow. Dang.
So I share a lot in common with Richie. Like the clown is so terrifying. But when I finally read it, I read it on a book on tape. I was traveling back and forth between my job in North Dakota, working in the oil fields, and back home. And I would a lot of late nights driving across barren wastes, just expanses of eastern Montana, western North Dakota, nothing there, dark, and just listening to it, because I was starting driving at like 9 p.m. and I get at my house at like 3, and the whole time I'm just riveted, like clutching my steering wheel, going, "This is the scariest thing in the fucking world." That's where I came to it.
Wow. What about with the movie?
The movie was, my daughter was born in late August of 2017, and I really wanted to see it that year. But I mean, this came out, I think, a week after she was born. I just couldn't make it. I couldn't get to the theater. I wanted to so badly. I just wanted to see it so much. In fact, there were several pirated copies that were given to me by unnamed friends. And I tried to watch those, but they were of poor quality. So I saw the first scene probably 4 times from different streams that didn't work. And it made me so mad that I couldn't just see this movie that I wanted to see so badly. I had such deep connection to that. I held off until the Blu-ray came out. I bought it the first day. I did watch it legally, everybody. And when I did finally see it, it blew me away, and it exceeded all my expectations.
Cool.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's a super deep connection to this story. Dave, I know you have the similar timeline with Vito, right? You first were introduced to the book when you were younger.
Yeah, I read it for the first time when I want to say about 15.
Ooh.
Which is quite young to read it. And I remember being struck numerous times as I was reading it that I am way too young to be reading this. But at the same time, I felt like that, almost was maybe the perfect time to read it, because I was kind of at a similar age to the characters, maybe a little bit older than the characters, but kind of at that stage where you're really starting to think about the fact that kind of really facing childhood fears, concerns about the future, and kind of come to that realization of what's going on in the adult world and the traumas and problems that you can see are maybe unresolved in the adult world that you're part of as well. And I think the bridging of those two at that age actually was a pretty optimum time to read the book, I think. Cool. I remember coming across it just in the library, and I'd seen Stephen King around a lot. Several of my members of my extended family were big Stephen King fans. And I kind of knew instinctively that I would not have been allowed to read Stephen King at that time, but it had never been formally established or said. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to read a Stephen King book. So I went to his section, and I didn't know too much about any particular one, but I remember it had the coolest cover.
It's a claw.
Yeah, a pair of claws just sticking right out of the storm grate with, I think, the little paper boat following it in there. And I was like, you know what, this looks like a good one.
It's the most disturbing, biggest paperback I've ever seen.
It was disturbing, and you get so little to go with. You get that cover art, and then you get the word "it" in blood red letters on the edition that I had. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take a gander with that.
Yeah. It's enough. It's enough. It opens with a child being eaten.
Yep. Yeah. And I kept going.
You're like, oh, that's cool. I want more.
Yeah. But I remember I had kind of a similar atmosphere that I read it in as Vito as well, because it was, I think, during the depths of a Midwestern winter, just endless slate gray days, ice on the windows, no going outside. And I remember
very much like Maine, yeah.
It felt like that. I was like, I'm in Derry right now, and I remember even though it's a massive book, I remember reading it pretty quick. I feel like I had it done in about a week.
Yeah, same.
And I felt like it was one of those experiences you have where a book or sometimes a show will be so engrossing that you start to feel like you're almost living more in the world of the book for that time. And that regular life is just kind of this intrusion that pops up, and you just can't wait to get back to it.
My favorite.
Yeah. And I felt like I needed to finish this before I could go back to normal life.
Yeah.
Do you think you ever got back to normal life after reading this?
No.
There's definitely a pre-it, post-it.
There's a pre-it, post-it. Yeah.
It's interesting.
But yeah, that's where I first encountered it. I remember it being shocking to read at such a young age, but I still maintain that was actually a great time to read it. And it was interesting coming to the movie so many years later, like 14 years later, having not reviewed the book at all and having those impressions and having it been kind of the first really adult, for lack of a better word, novel that I had read. And then thinking about a movie adaptation that had been done so recently, especially considering that I am not by nature a horror fan in any sense. Vito convinced me to take a shot at this movie. He said, "You'll really like it. You love the book. You'll really like it." So I decided to give it a shot, and I was quite impressed with that. I thought it was a good adaptation, and obviously compressed in a lot of ways, but I thought it really captured the essence of the book, and I thought kind of turned up some elements of the book that deserved maybe a little bit more time in the original story too.
How about you, Mike? I know for you never read the book.
Yeah. So I think I'm the only one here who hasn't read it. I think
you are.
I think yes, you are.
I didn't come to Stephen King until a few years ago. Actually, I grew up. I was a pretty big reader growing up, but for some reason, just never picked up a Stephen King book. And I read my first Stephen King when I was like 25, 26, something like that.
What was it?
I never looked back. It was The Gunslinger. And so my introduction to Stephen King was the entire Dark Tower series.
It's like the most violent, bizarre, strange series ever written.
Every time I think about it, and then I'll be like, oh, what happened there? And I look it up and I'm like, what the hell is this? Why? It was it
Stephen King is a character? Why?
Yeah. It's super meta. I spent a lot of time driving around throughout LA and
you had a lot of commuting.
I do a lot of driving. And so I would just listen to this. And I listened to all of those books. They're all 40-hour books.
Yeah.
It took me about a year and a half to listen to them. And I pretty much went straight through all 7. I've gone through a couple more since then. I've done, The Stand and stuff like that. So Stephen King,
another 60-hour book.
Yeah, seriously. So I've come late to the Stephen King party. I am really happy to be here. I love Stephen King.
Well,
I haven't had a chance.
You came heavy to the Stephen King party,
dude,
man.
It's a fun party. He's a really great author. He creates really great characters, and I haven't read it yet. It's on the list to read soon, but
sorry, what haven't you read yet?
It. I haven't read it.
What? Oh,
it. It. I haven't read it.
Which one?
No, Mike, you didn't read Reddit. I mean, you can't be blamed for that. Reddit's so long.
I'm almost all the way through Reddit. Okay? I'm getting there.
I'm in the NSFW sections, and it's really uncomfortable, but I'm really trying.
Thankful for work at home, I guess.
What are you doing? I'm reading Reddit.
No, but so this is my first encounter with it. I watched it this week for the first time. It being the movie, It, not something else.
No, we know you're talking about it, but what is
you watched Reddit, yeah.
I'm watching Reddit.
I'm so sorry. You should not watch Reddit. Gosh, Incel Central.
Yeah. No, but so I loved this movie. It was so much fun to watch. I'm also like Dave, not a huge horror fan. Not that I'm not a fan of it. I just haven't really touched it. I've dipped my toe in a couple of times, but it's scary.
Got bitten off.
Yeah, got bitten off. Yeah. One of my arms got bitten off.
Sure. We'll join the club, man. We're the Losers Club.
But yeah, I'm really happy to have seen it. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. What about you, Jesse? What's your history with it? With it.
Yeah.
My history with it is basically the same as yours, Mike, except it is the second book that I've read or listened to by Stephen King. I first read The Shining. Now I've read It. And, or at least I listened to it at work. So I got an Audible account this summer.
I was working and I was able to also get through this 1,100 page novel.
Nice.
So yeah, I just work at a computer all day, and my job is more one where I click on things and I usually know exactly what I'm doing. I don't really need to think too hard. So I just go for it.
Nice.
Yeah. And I usually just plug in an audiobook at 1.5 speed and there I go.
Dude, that's so ideal. I wish I had that. That's amazing.
It's so great. I've
done that. I've done that before too. Yeah, I usually go 1.25 speed personally, but I've definitely done the computer work plus Audible live for sure.
I'm at 1.45, guys. 1.45. I've been at 1.55.
What's your
I really want to get through it?
Wait, I mean, I feel like a Philistine when I listen to podcasts. I just do the 1.2. I'm happy with that.
Okay. Yeah.
I know.
I like to zoom through them because it's just like, like it's Stephen King. I already know the kind of characters he's going to have. Even though I've only read 2 books, like he has, and I've seen enough movies where I just know all the stereotypes. I know the sort of characters.
Wow, a real presumptor here.
You just understand it.
You just get it,
you get it.
I just get Mr. King so well. He's like the most straightforward author. Like there's a reason why this guy's movies have been adapted to film or this guy's books have been adapted to film so often. It's because he basically writes a script. It's so easy to read and so straightforward. There's a couple weird meta scenes like what I was describing before with the ending of it. Other than that, like everything else is super like crystal clear.
Yeah. Besides from the child sex, this is a pretty straightforward book.
Yeah, and actually, I will never ever recommend this book because I loved this book. I thought it was amazing. And then at the end of the book, right? Like there's 20 minutes left. I see on Audible, and like suddenly they're in the sewers, all of them. They've just defeated it as children, and then Beverly takes off her pants and says, "Who's first?"
What the fuck?
Yeah.
And then I was just like, this is weird. This Stephen King won't describe what's going to happen next, right?
No. And not in detail, but it's also quite frank.
I don't know. I just kept on hitting skip. And in between me hitting skip, I would hear like a few words. And I'm just like,
It is vague and specific, but not specific in a gross way. He has defended this part of his book a few times, as of course he ought to if you're going to write this and have it become a New York Times bestseller.
If you're gonna have child pornography in your book, you should have some argument. Even if it's trash.
It is in no way pornographic. It's in no way pornographic. Is the thing. He does have an explanation. I don't want to summarize it here. If anyone wants to read about it, you probably should and look up some of his interviews. He has a reason.
No, don't.
It is there. However, it's not a good reason because there's no good reason to do this.
Yeah.
But it is not exploitative in the way that he has written it. And that's what I would say.
Yeah, it's not exploitative. He gives supposedly a story reason. The thing is, like, if you think about it as a story, there's no reason for this scene to fit in that story. Like, I told for instance, I had told my wife that, right? I told her.
Past and future, as of this publishing, guest of the show.
Yeah, we've got some continuity issues tonight.
Oh, that's okay.
Just deal with
it. He's already been on the show, but you haven't heard it yet.
We're traveling back and forward in time, just at a different speed.
So I told her about what Beverly does, though, right? And she's just like, "Oh, I hate this girl." And I was just like, "No, you don't understand Beverly."
No, right? No, don't you attack my girl, Bevy.
That's the power of Stephen King. You feel like you know her, you know who she is. Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's what sucks about this particular scene. It's so out of character for her. In fact, given what happens in the book, like she's chased by her father, who
it's out of character for the younger her. It's not out of character for who she becomes and the entanglements that she gets in. I'm not saying that she's a slut. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that she does, because of the abuse of her father, she does enter into a life that's very difficult on her, and she has a lot of trouble with. I don't know. It's been a little bit since I read the book. I would like to read the book in the knowledge of the movie, and then also being the age that I am, to be able to make a definitive ruling in my brain. But I also don't want to get too bogged down in it, because I think that that's something that other people that know this subject better than us have elucidated more clearly.
Yeah, but I was just going to throw it out there because it is kind of a big deal for the book. And it did. I had no idea that was happening or that was going to happen when I listened to it. And then it happened. I was like, what the hell just happened to this awesome book I was just listening to? And then I had to keep going because I was 20 minutes away from finishing a 48-hour-long audiobook.
No turning back now.
Yeah. Anyway, the book, besides that one scene, it is amazing. It goes into the trauma of all these kids. And I also watched Stand By Me while I was listening to this book. And Stand By Me is also based off of another Stephen King novel.
A novella, The Body.
Yeah, so that also happened in the 80s. And like the depth of the characters in Stand By Me, I found like in it in a much bigger way. Like I really felt like I knew and connected with every single one of them. And then I came to this movie just this week, and it was really enjoyable. It's the whole time I was comparing it to the book, which is always a huge mistake, right? But I was just so fresh off of it that
Rookie.
So there were
pushing up his glasses right now. The book is better than the movie.
Well, no, there's no child sex in it, so by default. The movie does some really cool things, like, you know, beating the shit out of the clown. That is the most cathartic scene I've ever experienced, and that was not in the. Yeah. Anyway, as a movie, it was just so enjoyable to just watch a group of kids come along, be terrorized the entire time, and then ultimately win. Yeah, it's just it's a super classic story in so many ways. I really enjoyed it. My wife lasted exactly 15 minutes, and then she said, "This is the scariest movie I've ever seen. I'm leaving."
Maybe Jesse, maybe you should have called her in after the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then she might have lasted like a little bit longer.
No, I don't think. I actually, right before this podcast, I tried to show her one of my favorite scenes. I was just like, I just need you to watch this. It's really cool. And then she said, "What is your definition of cool?" I don't think I agree with it. Then I said, "Just watch it." And then I showed her.
Wait, so did she see the
I showed her
Georgie
one of
scene?
my favorite scenes, which I'm not going to mention now, but she. You know what? It's not. I'm just going to get into it now. My favorite scene in this movie is the garage scene. The scene where they have
such a
All right. Well, just to be clear, we were going to go in a row about this, and Jesse had put himself at a disadvantage by going last, and this was my pick, and I knew that it would be mine, and now it is not mine.
You know what? I will.
And now
still,
Jesse's just like taking the lead.
The last or first?
You know, I will still go last because I want to hear Dave's favorite scene from this movie.
No, well, here, no. Before that, you already jumped in. You got to do it, man.
Yeah.
Talk about the scene.
Yeah.
Oh, this scene is so great. So they have this projector up, and it's overlaying a map of the city on another map they have actually up, right? And then
that's just something I thought would be a bigger part of my life, like putting maps over maps and projectors. I really want to do that at some point. I never have.
I've never found a use for it.
I have nothing in my life that would make me do that.
No, I've never needed a large map and a second map to show the differences in the maps.
I don't even know where I would get those things.
I actually do that digitally all the time for my jobs.
Oh, you're so lucky.
So cool. I've looked at maps on maps.
While you're listening to Audible?
While listening to stories about people looking at maps on maps. Oh my gosh, holy shit. This is like
so
this is deep. It's like Turtles on Turtles.
Or turtles in turtles. Turtles crawling inside of other turtle shells.
Nope. We're stopping that right now. I don't want to go down that road.
Okay, so there's a projector. Map on a map. What else, Jesse? What else is going on?
And then they lose control of it, and it just starts flashing other images onto the wall, and then it's an image of Georgie and his parents. And then it starts going a little faster. It zooms in on Georgie. Then it zooms in on the mom, and the mom has hair covering her face, and then the hair starts peeling back, and you see the clown coming out. In the meantime, all the kids are screaming, "What the fuck? What the fuck? Oh, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off."
No, Jesse, I'm going to jump in. This is my favorite line. This is why this is my favorite scene. Is someone asks, "What's going on?" And Eddie says, "I don't fucking know." My favorite line, just the way he delivers it, is like it's like he's Mel Gibson in 1987, and he just took 2 huge bumps off a key, and it's just going, "I don't fucking know." But this 9-year-old is able to just summon this cokehead energy into this scene of utter terror and panic. I've never seen a kid do that. It's the best kid acting I've ever seen. And when he did it, I was just immediately like, "This is I want to deliver this line all the time." And everyone's going to look at me really weirdly at that dinner party where someone asks me, "Hey, what time is it?" And I just go, "I don't fucking
know." I liked how in character it was for Eddie to also feel the need to feel like they were asking him and that he needed to answer.
Yes.
Yes. I gotta check a lot of that.
Like, it's so clear. No one knows what's going on.
Yeah.
There's a clown on the screen. No one has any idea. No one knows what to do. They kick it off. It's landed on its side, and even though it's landed on its side, the clown is still there. And this time, it's moved and it's looking at Stanley. And then, but this projector slows down, right? So it flashes the clown, then it goes dark. Then it flashes again. The clown's not there. It goes dark. It flashes again. The clown is not in the wall anymore. It has come out, and it is terrifying and monstrous and huge. And it starts booking it after Beverly. And then they open the garage, and then it disappears.
I mean, look, I would just be so happy to have Ben there, because I think it's Ben is the one that opens the garage. He's the one that realizes that it's through the darkness the monster has the power, and it's only in light that he's cast out. Because honestly, like, if I was in that situation, I don't even know. Like, he's taken over my childhood memories, and he is now manipulating them to use them against me. And it's so deeply terrifying and deeply upsetting, but it's also so fun. Like, that's the weird thing about this movie, is that every time it's so terrifying, it's also so fun. because you
Yeah.
get to watch the kids react in real time. I watched a behind the scenes of this on the special features on the Blu-ray, and it showed a little bit of that filming, and it shows the kids, because they're filming from the projector screen at the kids, and you just see the kids like explode into pandemonium. Like they're just like crawling over each other. Like there's even a part where one of them like hits another one. The other one is like, why are you doing that? And then the other one just screams, and then they scream too. It's just a lot of like shrieking and like small animals just cavorting over each other. No idea what to do. We're just reacting.
Just terrified.
And that's exactly like how it feels in your head when you're a kid that you see something that terrifying. So this is a beautiful, honestly,
Masterful.
I think this is the scene. This is the scene of the movie. Is what I would argue.
Also, I love the fact that they've set this scene up already, because there's another scene like it earlier with Ben in the book, and every time he turns a page, right, it's the same thing, only it's zooming in on one part. But nothing bad happens that time. This time,
well, he only sees like a decapitated head of a child.
Did you guys see in the background like the people are freezing and they're like
yes.
Okay, yeah.
No, but continue.
Cool.
They're freezing and
they're freezing. They're getting closer to him. They're smiling.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
they're going crazy.
Yeah, but nothing bad happens coming out of the book. But this time, the way it's set up is you think that something similar could happen, but no, this time the clown just jumps out at you.
Yeah.
He sees them, and I think this is one of the most important scenes for the movie as a whole, because this is the first time the Losers Club is really together, and it's the first time that they encounter it together. And it's also the first time that it sees them as an entity of themselves. He knows that
like
this is the gang.
This is the unit of people who are trying to kill him.
And like he's individually terrorized them, but now he's kind of looking forward to them figuring out where he lives and them coming after him. Yeah. Because he's identified all of them in particular. He's shown he knows them all. And now he's shown he knows that they are all together and that they know about him.
Yeah.
And he's totally cool with it.
Yeah.
And
it's
also
a feeding frenzy for him.
Yeah. And before that, nobody has any idea that he can approach a group of people. Do you think maybe the rules are it's just one person at a time? But now it's pretty clear. No, he can do whatever he wants whenever he wants.
Doesn't matter. Like there's a deleted scene that's exactly at that point. It's where right after what's his name, Bill, runs up the stairs after seeing Georgie in the basement.
Oh
I might be stepping on someone else's scene, but in that scene when he runs up the stairs, and it sort of like slaps on the stairs behind him and then drags back into the water like a fish. In the deleted scene, he actually encounters his father. And his father is the one who goes down to the basement to investigate. He's like, I saw Georgie. I saw the water. I saw it all. And his dad goes downstairs. And you hear him splashing through the water and trying to find like whatever it is that's supposed to be happening that Bill is talking about. And you hear all these sounds, you hear like some creature growling, and it doesn't matter because his dad comes back upstairs and says, it's bone dry down there, Bill, and walks upstairs. And that's a great scene in the book because you know that he's not lying. He just doesn't know. It has blinded him.
Yeah. I was going to ask that. So is it that it is blinding some people, or is it that it is only making it visible to them, or does it really matter?
So Bill Skarsgård talked about this though in his preparation for the character.
Oh, okay.
He said that it is a primordial being, multidimensional being that's been around for forever.
Yeah,
but it picked Pennywise, and it likes being Pennywise.
Okay,
and it enjoys this process of luring kids and scaring kids. So he is doing whatever is fun for him.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't really matter. That the only rules is that Pennywise is having fun.
Well, I think that's the way it is in the movie. In the book, it goes into a little more. It talks more about Pennywise motivation. He feeds on fear, right? And the thing is,
beautiful fear.
Yeah. He doesn't understand adult fear, because adult fear are things like, oh, you lost tons of money in the stock market today. Well, how is he going to feed on that? But when it comes to little kids, their fears are almost all universal. It's always like big, scary monsters that can harm them, and things that go bump in the night. Yeah. He has an easier time like feeding off of that and emulating that rather than trying to figure out what on earth adults are scared of. Oh yeah, Dave. What are your favorite scenes in this movie? Because we totally skipped over you.
Well, mine was not taken in that.
Ooh, great.
Although I think it does kind of piggyback on some of those themes, though. I had to go with the geyser of blood in Bev's room.
Oh yeah.
And the continuation of that scene where her friends show up. I think so. The scene is Bev enters her room, I believe, right after kind of an altercation with her father.
Yeah,
and she
when
hears
he like holds her hair and then she cuts it and then she comes back, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and then she goes into her room and she hears the ghostly voices of the lost children calling to her from the drain in the sink in her room.
Freaky.
And she can't see, and so she decides to take a measuring tape just to see how far down it goes. And she keeps extending and dropping it until finally she runs all the way out of tape. And then she starts pulling it back up, and this tape slowly starts coming out covered in blood, and then starts pulling her down until finally a geyser of blood just erupts and coats the whole room and her and everything. And at that point, her father enters, and he can't see it, similar to how Bill's dad can't see the water in the basement. And he just keeps saying, Bev, I'm worried about you. I'm worried about you. And then he walks away, and he completely does not comprehend what's happened. So I think as far as just pure horror, I found that almost scarier than the personified version of it in the form of the clown. That it's just utterly incomprehensible. Like, why would whose blood is this? Why is this happening?
But he walks into a room that's literally every square inch is dripping with blood, including his daughter.
Yes.
And does not see it at all. It does not react to it. It's dripping on him.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. And I think that really captures kind of just the maddening feeling of some of these fears as a child, that to you, it feels like the world is covered in blood or covered in something horrifying. And yet to the adult world, it's like there's simply nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And
they're just worried about you.
Yeah. They're worried about you. And it's saying that this is something, this is your problem. This is something wrong with you that you're seeing this.
Yeah.
But then I think what I really thought was my favorite part about it is it's a separate scene, but basically a continuation of this, where she invites the losers to come over and see it. And they enter into the room and they're all blown away.
They're like disgusted immediately.
They're disgusted. They're blown away. What the fuck is this? But then I remember in the book this struck me, and in the film it struck me, where I think it's Bill who pipes up after they've kind of surveyed the damage and made their comments. He says, "Well, we need to clean this up."
Yeah.
Yeah. And
then they all just proceed to work together and scrub gallons and gallons of blood off every inch of the surface of this room until it's spotless. And I thought that was another big step ahead rather for the gang, where Bev was dealing with this. Well, because Vito, you mentioned how previously they were all attacked by it when they're alone.
Yeah,
they're wandering around the neighborhood by themselves, and then they get attacked. And she was attacked by herself, but then she decided to bring her friends into it.
Yes,
and let them into the problem, and instead of attacking her or just shaking their head and saying, "I'm worried about you," their immediate response is, "Well, we need to clean this up." And there's a, fairly strange and disturbing montage of them scrubbing blood off the walls to,
but it's cute,
happy music. But it is cute. It is like heartwarming in a way.
It's kind of like them kind of moving it around with bloody rags.
It takes more effort. It's like you ever tried to clean up a spill with a chamois? It's really hard. You just sort of push it around.
Gas station paper towels.
Yes.
Yes.
Why won't you absorb? Damn it. I did want to bring up just in response to that scene too. In terms of the overall narrative, that's a really important scene, because what's happened to each of them, and I think this is why they cut that scene with Bill, is because she's the only one that has a manifestation of it that persists. The effects persist.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
He targets her, and his attack in some ways unites the losers into knowing that none of them are alone. Otherwise, all of them, their experiences are so solitary and unprovable. And this is the one where all of them are like, "Oh no, your bathroom is covered in blood.
Yeah.
We all have encountered this thing. We all now implicitly believe there's an evil at the heart of Derry."
Yeah.
Even though we all individually believe that. Now as a collective family, we have this experience together.
Yeah. And I think it's really what gives them, because it's ultimately their strength as friends and the unity that they have that gives them power to defeat the monster. And I think this is a real big step where Bev making that move to invite them into this trauma, the fact that they recognize it, see it, and then proceed to say, all right, well, we need to work together and clean this up. And then they acknowledge the power, that they can all see it, and they move forward.
And I think
I thought that was powerful.
It is powerful because it's also like digging one layer deep into the whole story is that she has the trauma that's actually the most traumatic of all of them.
Yeah.
She has an abusive father. And in the book, and also in the second chapter of it, it's made a little bit more clear that her father is under the influence of it. And he's actually like a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
This is not him doing this.
Yeah.
But in this way, it shows that. So like what we got, Richie, his terror is never shown because he's scared of clowns. The clown knows he's got him.
Yeah.
Right. But then we have Stanley, like who's dealing with his upcoming bar mitzvah. He's terrified of the specter of like maybe the old Jewish that is terrifying him in his future. And he doesn't know if he believes it. We have Eddie, who's terrified of disease and he's confronted with a leper. We have Ben, who's what's Ben's one?
It's a library, and he sees a headless kid in that picture scene, and then the headless body actually walks down the stairs in the bowels of the library.
The zombie, the living dead.
Yeah,
is what frightens him. And then Bill, it's obviously Georgie, and then for let's see, who am I missing?
Guilt. Georgie and
Guilt.
Guilt.
and is it Mike? Mike sees his parents' hands in the burning building.
Yeah, but also it's like also about the black spot, right? The burning down of the black club that have it in the hands that are charring.
Yeah.
But all of those are, if not normal, at least more pedestrian than my father is sexually abusing me.
Yeah.
So it would make sense in terms of the story that it would hone in on the most traumatized one because he's a demon. And it would make sense too that the losers would group around the most wounded one, the real heart of their group.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a good call for that being a great scene. Like, that
cool.
ties a lot of the movie together.
Yeah. I thought in the book and the movie, that's a real like axis that takes you into the next part of the story.
The pivotal moment for how they end up beating Pennywise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I had a lot of really favorite scenes, but I think the one that might be my favorite of all of them is just the entire sequence in the haunted house the first time they go in. It's so much fun while also being actually scary.
Really scary.
It's hilarious.
And not
also.
scary at all.
Yeah, not scary at all. Very scary. Really, really scary. Yeah. Like, I love that. That's just like that. I was laughing, but also freaked out about what's going to happen. Clowns are also scary to me. So when Richie, gets locked in the room with the clowns, I'm like, oh my gosh, is Richie going to die? He's my favorite, sort of.
Telling.
But then like but then at the final confrontation when Pennywise like comes out of in that final room that they all end up in, when Pennywise sort of unravels out of the refrigerator, that is freaky shit. Yeah. Like, I think that's one of the things that weirds me out the most is contortionists.
Yeah. Bill Skarsgård actually trained with a contortionist for that scene. So that scene is mostly him with wild. When his arm unwinds from behind him. Yeah. That is CGI. They just CGI different parts of his body for different parts of the scene. But in general, it's all his body. But what they did is they did it in reverse. Oh, so they filmed
so he got into it,
and they played it backwards to make it seem even weirder.
Dude,
the way that he gets out.
I feel like Bill Skarsgård is like that weird kid in school who because he can move his eyes in opposite directions at the same time.
He was asked to. He learned to do that for this movie.
Yeah. He's just that like kid in school who's just doing random things in the corner, and you're like, this kid is either cool or a psycho, and I'm not sure which.
Well, like the lip thing, he could always do.
Be nice to him
when he was a kid.
Yeah,
but then the director mentioned that he wanted the eye thing, and so he taught himself because he has a partially lazy eye.
That's why,
and that he can just let go when he wants to. He trained it so that he could move it at degrees when he needed it to. Yeah,
that's really cool. Good for you, Bill.
Oh, that's crazy.
But so then they're all down there. They're freaking out. Eddie is like hyperventilating, and
no one. Broken arm.
He's got a broken arm, and it is coming, and they don't know what to do. And they're like, and he's just loving it. He's just soaking in all the fear.
Am I not real enough for you, Bill?
Yeah,
I was real enough for Georgie.
Am I not real enough for you? It's so cool. There's some there's cool lines in there. this isn't real. That's when they first start realizing like the way to confront it is to say it's not real. I'm not afraid of you. Like I can stand, I'm with my friends, but still like they get down there and they break. They don't quite get it except until Beverly comes with the poker from the gate and
Right
thrust it through his eye. It's so cool. But he's not dead.
Yep.
And he's
wounded.
Sneaks back down into his lair.
He crawls almost like he crawls in reverse of someone crawling out of something.
Yeah.
Back into his little well, and then his eyes, and then he drops down.
Yeah. And he's still in control.
Yeah.
He's still in control. Even though he's been wounded, sort of, you're not really sure he's actually wounded.
Because he scared him. That's all he wants.
Yeah.
It's funny, now that you mentioned that, when they say, like, it's not real, it's not real, it's not real, I think that when they say that, I think that feeds the clown. I think he wants them to think he's not real, because if you're facing something that's not real, you can't do anything to it.
Yeah, you give it all the power.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
So I think Beverly actually shatters that because she considers it to be real, so she physically tries to harm it because with real things, you can harm them.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah,
yeah.
But it's like it is real, but it's not as scary as like her father. Yeah. That's why she's the one who's able to do it, right? It's because she's faced kind of
she's the most traumatized one, and therefore any demon that presents itself is less scary than her actual trauma.
Yeah. And considering like fear and trauma in general, like accepting that it is real actually is the solution, because it seems like telling yourself this isn't real is the equivalent to sweeping it under the rug.
For sure.
Yeah.
Burying it, and that never works. It surfaces again one way or another. So her recognition that, no, this is real, and I can stab it in the eye with a poker. Yeah.
So that's a really good point, guys. I don't think I got that, but it's like you gotta recognize that it's real, but also that it has no power over you.
Yeah.
This is trauma psychology 101, baby.
Yeah.
Cool. But I guess I would go last then in terms of my favorite scene, because you took my beloved favorite, Jesse, and that's fine.
I think you've gotten 2 now.
That's fine.
This is number 3.
No, I can do what I do what I want. It's not my fault you guys didn't take advantage of this. No, it's the Corey scene.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
The Corey scene.
That's a great scene.
I want to talk about this scene because in some of the special features that I watched, they talked about the director and the casting director worked together with these kids. And so Sophia Lillis was a little bit older than these guys, because they're all about the same age. They're all between like 10 and 12. And some of them are more serious actors. You get that from some of the interviews. Like you get that Jaden Martell and Wyatt Oleff are much more serious people who are like, so that's Stanley and Bill. They're in reverse order. They're more like about the craft, and they're kind of seen that way by their peers. But like Finn and Chosen Jacobs and Jack Dylan Grazer are just having, and Jeremy Ray Taylor are also just having like just a really good time together. Like they're the ones that sunk most deeply in the experience. They pulled Jaden and Wyatt together in with them, and they were all like really good friends. They filmed this over a summer. They talk about how like this was the best summer of their lives, and they were like 12 or 13 years old.
That's awesome.
And then Sophia Lillis comes in, and she's a little bit older than them, and she just goes like, "Hey, they were really nice to me. They were really cool. And they were really," she's used the word interesting like 7 times. Like they were interesting. They're very interesting to talk to. Interesting guys.
Covers a lot of ground.
It does. But I can imagine like you're on a set with 6 12-year-old dudes and you're like a 15-year-old girl. That would suck.
Yeah.
But they all managed to get this chemistry that does feel, because I remember being 12 years old and interacting with the 12-year-old girls and feeling like they were much older than me, feeling like they knew more. They were taller.
Yeah, they were, weren't they?
They were always taller. Yeah. I was short, and I was just like, I just haven't grown yet. I have this big voice. Someday my voice will get deeper. And they're like, "Yes, I'm sure, little boy. I'm sure it will. We are now going to talk about 17 magazine." But the way that they all interacted at the quarry in the water felt very real, because once kids actually get a chance to be kids, all the dividing lines come down, and you have actual playtime, and actual bonding. We're joking around and kidding around. And that was beautiful for me. That little sequence was as good to me as Stand By Me was. It was in terms of getting a disparate group of characters together and seeing how they're going to actually function, and the chemistry between all of them, the way they interact individually and as a group, was all in that 10 minutes. And I think that's just masterful writing, masterful acting. Everyone knocks it out of the park. That made me believe in the Losers Club. And that 10 minutes did what a season of Stranger Things had to do.
That is a really great
Very
point.
fair.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Really quick, speaking of the Stand By Me, the book, The Body, was written in 1982. Just wanted to throw that out there. So a couple of years before this came out. So clearly not that long. Clearly it informed it. Jesse, you were about to say something that I cut you off.
I was going to say something, but now that we brought up Stand By Me and we've been talking about trauma, I did do some research on Stephen King, and I found out apparently when he was a little boy, he went over to a friend's house and his friend lived next to the train tracks, and he had been playing him and his friend, right? And apparently he just showed up at his house. Like Stephen King went back to his mom. His face was white. He wasn't able to talk, wasn't able to say anything. And the mom ran over to the friend's house and found out his friend had been demolished by a train.
Holy shit.
And they had to pick up pieces of the friend and put him in a basket because there wasn't that much left. Stephen King to this day says he doesn't remember any of it. But that's what was told to him. So, like, this dude has been through some serious trauma himself. Yeah. So, like, writing a whole... Yeah, so, like, that's where the Stand By Me has that scene where, like, it's all about finding a dead body that's been hit by a train, right? And this movie and this story in this book is about trauma and, like, slowly forgetting it.
Stephen King... all of his books, every single one, I think, without exception, are about trauma. I would be hard-pressed to find one that does not deal with the past and with terrible things that have happened and how that informs you as an adult.
Yeah, and a lot of them about childhood trauma and how it informs you as an adult.
Yeah.
I think maybe the one that's the least about that is Shawshank Redemption, and even that's about trauma. It's just not childhood.
Yeah. It's trauma, yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my depressing fact of the day.
Sidebar.
Ooh. Oh, hey, I've got like an interesting little fact. Did you know in 11/22/63, Bev and Richie show up?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. Yes. There's a very small scene with them in
Yes,
in
very
Derry.
small. Very small with them in Derry. They don't remember whatever his name is.
Yeah.
George. No.
Pennywise?
George. Oh. No, they remember Pennywise at the time. It had like just happened.
As adults or kids?
As kids.
They're kids.
And they're like dancing together in Derry. They had just defeated the clown.
Yeah. And they do reference that Derry has shit wrong with it.
Yeah.
That's a cool.
Yeah.
I think that's like the only thing, because I know Stephen King mostly through The Dark Tower,
which is mostly Stephen King's greatest hits.
Yeah, it's like mostly. It's like I'm referencing every book I've ever written.
Yeah,
I'm like, what is this about? I don't know. But
all of his books take place in the same world. Like even in It, they reference like going to Shawshank.
Yes,
as an option for them.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, what a terrible world.
Yeah, really bad one.
It's
a lot of trauma.
Really bad, no good, don't want.
I guess it's run by a turtle god of all things.
Yeah.
I guess it really gives you the sense that like he is letting you into his own psyche.
Yeah.
And his own, like that all these books are really like they are in the same world and it's his mind. It's his psyche.
Yeah.
Wild dark tower of a mind.
Yeah, the dark tower.
It's all centered around Castle Rock, guys. You know, the production company that Rob Reiner started?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about Castle Rock.
It's all about Castle Rock.
Anyway.
All right, guys. Sidebar. So, if you were being chased by a clown demon that could take on your greatest fear, what would you be chased by? For me, going first, I would be chased by my cell phone saying I have 0 as my bank account balance.
Middle age.
I'm chased by that every day.
I smell it in the air. I taste it in the water. I feel it in the earth.
Galadriel again, huh?
Yes.
Galadriel
You mean you said middle age? It's the middle age of Middle Earth. I don't know, man. You mentioned Tolkien. I'm just trying to bring it around.
Tolkien.
Mike.
Awesome. Wait, Dave. What are you terrified about?
Maybe seeing myself as the man in the gray flannel suit.
Oh, that's a reference that I know, and I'm having trouble placing.
I have no idea.
Further.
That's like the archetype. I think it was a book. It just became like a saying, but like the archetypal like 50s corporate drone guy. Everybody walks off at the same time, like in the Truman Show,
like
where everybody
show.
leaves in the same day, same time, goes to work, comes back.
Or like what's it? Kurosawa's High and Low, like about the onslaught of capitalism and economics bearing down on the middleman.
Yeah, exactly.
That is terrifying. That's awful.
That
and feeling like, I didn't make it. I didn't make it out.
You fucked up.
It got me. Or like the end of the Body Snatchers.
Oh yeah,
they're all
Body Snatchers.
Seeing myself, that feeling, I think, is what that would call to mind for me, and that would be terrifying.
Wow. Yeah, honestly, that would be really scary to see, like, your future, like, completely beaten down self, like, running after you, like, on the streets. Yeah, that should be a movie. If it hasn't been already, it probably has been.
Invasion of the Gray Flannel Suits.
There we go.
Yeah.
No. Donald Sutherland in that. Yeah.
That's an excellent one too. Yeah.
I think what I'm most afraid of, it's either spiders or, I mean, like $0 in the bank account. That's terrifying. But darkness, like darkness, like no light darkness chasing me from behind, like Never-Ending Story, sort of world-ending behind me. Nothingness, true nothingness. That would be chasing me down, because it's existential.
Yeah.
You know, if nothingness exists, does anything matter? You know, I wake up every day like, well, that's the question I ask myself.
Yeah.
If nothing exists, or if nothingness exists, does anything matter? Then I roll out of bed and say, "Hey kids, how you doing?"
Oh man, that really does happen in the Never-Ending Story, though, which makes that movie.
That's what we're referring to is the nothing that is always chasing and eating up the world.
Is there a point where they're sitting there like watching the stars just go out? Or something? Yeah, that's
the princess, and she's just asking him to say her name.
Yeah,
because it's in her identity that the whole world could be saved.
Yeah,
and he keeps saying, "I don't know it," and he finally.
I forgot about that.
And then there was that crazy scene where, like, there's a giant rock monster, and he usually is followed around by his two buddies. And this time the two buddies run around, and he's just staring at his hands, saying, "These used to be big, strong hands.
Used to be big, strong hands."
And that he's like totally despondent, won't say anything else, just staring at his hands. Yeah.
The Never-Ending Story is definitely a stay tuned for something that might be coming up sooner. We just got to find a place that we can work it into, because as far as I know, existential childhood terror only has like one movie on the list, and that's one. like step back with your Labyrinth or your Dark Crystal. All right, just chill out. You don't have anything in Never-Ending Story.
This is for you kids where the existential crisis hit real early.
Yes. Already showed it to my kids.
Yeah, existential crisis. Right?
No, I'm down for the other one.
That's like a book title. Yeah.
The Existential Christ. Wow.
Yeah.
Dips.
What are you scared of, Vito?
I am. It does have kind of a name. The imposter syndrome.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I am very scared of that. I'm very scared that one day I will wake up and I am not the person that I worked very, very hard to be, and I am instead a loser in every sense that I ascribe to that term, and I am watching the person that I built up live a successful life with his family, with his career, with his interests, and I am on the outside of it with no way to break back into it.
Holy shit, that's terrifying.
Oh my god.
That's horrible. Oh,
heard that? Yeah.
Oh.
These are all
like the worst possible story that I can imagine.
No. So what I'm scared of is looking at a more successful me, and having that me and having that version of me's wife and children and life, and having to watch that occur and having nothing to do with it. So if I was being chased by it, I'd just be chased by my idealized version of me.
Okay. I'm just going to say something based off of literally all of our answers. Like, when I made this question, I thought this would be like a little more fun, but we actually just got into like all of our deepest fears. Like, this is why the clown does not attack adults.
My hands are like slimy, dude. Like, I'm having a real hard time over here.
I'm like staring off into space, like, oh, what am I doing?
I'm currently traumatized by this question.
Yeah. You said that at the beginning. You're like, I can't take the form of a middle-aged you or whatever. I was like, oh, that's what I was going to say.
That's like
I'm afraid of. I don't want, or like like remember that scene in The World's End where Simon Pegg greets the younger version of him? Do you remember this, Jesse? Where the alien shows him the android version of him as a young man, and he goes, "Look, you can be you, clean and pure and beautiful as you always were, and it's everything you ever wanted, to be young again, to be perfect." And then he picks up like that lamp, and then he just smashes the robot into pieces, and is like, "Nah, there's only one Gary King." That would be the appropriate response to it in the moment for all of us. But none of us have the fortitude of one of my heroes, Gary King. Also, stay tuned. I can't believe we got 2 stay tuned on one whole thing. That's
dude,
amazing.
in like 5 minutes.
That's incredible.
Stay tuned. I feel like we've had several stay tuned.
Oh no! What we're gonna do is we're just gonna stay tuned them, and then we're really relying on our listeners to remind us.
What are we doing? I have no idea.
No, we do know. We just would like it if you also knew, and if you wanted to tell us.
Shoot us an email.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, please do.
That was dark.
All right. I'm going to end the sidebar.
The
The sidebar is over. We're going to put a big giant lid on all of that. Push it down, guys.
Just like what I do when I wake up. Great. This is less of a sidebar and more of a sad bar.
A dad joke sad bar. A dad sad bar.
It's okay. That was very dad that you couldn't come up with a flashy name.
Done.
We'll get
I'm
to
done.
Don't worry.
I'm done.
Okay. Then I did have.
Wait.
Mike's raising his hand.
I've got a what if. I've got a what if.
Ooh! I want to hear.
2 what ifs.
Okay, well,
they can come together in one fantastic question.
Okay.
It, made by Terrence Malick,
No.
starring
No.
Nicolas Cage
No.
as
No.
Pennywise the Clown.
No.
This
No.
needs to happen.
No.
Terrence Malick.
No.
Come on, man.
No. I refuse to even entertain this as like a funny joke.
Okay.
No.
If this is Terrence Malick, then what happens is they encounter it at the end. It's this giant spider self. They go on an adventure through eternity, and through it have flashbacks to how they got here.
Yeah.
All narrated by Nicolas Cage. That's
It's
As Pennywise the Clown.
It's a lot of beach shots and field shots, a lot of ospreys and sparrows, and then
Rivers.
like sometimes like there would be a clown on set, but they would never film it because Terrence Malick is just not interested in the clown.
You'll see like the back of his head at one point.
Maybe like if he happened to be there.
Yeah,
But then the
by
camera
mistake.
quickly like moves because Terrence is like, get him out of here. I'm not filming him.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Look,
Look at this bird.
it's a wild idea, dude. It's a wild idea. I am 100% not for it.
Good.
I feel like-
Good. I'm glad.
No.
I feel like that's asking, like, would you want to like eat an orange and drink Listerine at the same time?
Oh, yeah.
Nothing about that.
There's a small part of me that like loves destruction enough to do that.
Clearly,
You know, Mike.
But-
Mike, we can have a Mike's Destruction Corner, and every week you just do something that we all tell you not to do. That'd be really fun.
there's creative distraction.
Don't
I feel like that's most
Oranges.
weekends.
Don't eat oranges. Drink Listerine and brush your teeth with steel wool.
There you go. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I was already planning on not doing that. So
Well, I forbid you.
Well, fuck. Now I gotta do it.
Nice.
Dave, do you also forbid Mike?
I do. Yeah. Categorically.
Well, that cancels it out, so I don't have to do it now. Good. All right. Now, Jesse, you had another question, and I want to know what that question was.
yeah. So I guess we're ending the sidebar. That was a good sidebar.
And the sidebar. End it.
Sidebar.
Good.
Oh, good. Okay. So, on a slightly more serious note, I guess, watching this, like, and again, I enjoyed the movie. It was great, but there's always a part of me that almost feels a little uncomfortable watching child actors doing things like stabbing clowns brutally and saying fuck a lot. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about that. Like, am I the only one that feels a little uncomfortable?
They do
Watching
say
that?
the fuck word,
Especially as
Yeah.
a dad.
The fuck word.
Well,
Yeah.
Dave, like, what do you think about this as a non-dad, but a prospective entry into the dadverse?
A
Yeah,
possible dad person thon.
A candidate. Yeah.
As someone who has a dad, what do you think?
I guess the question is like, do you find that disturbing to see,
or confusing, or like, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, I have felt disturbed by that before. I don't think, for whatever reason, this movie didn't particularly hit me that way because it seemed fairly natural for the ages of the kids in the movie.
I talked like this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that wasn't all that abnormal to talk like that.
They're like 100% more clever than I was, but sure. I definitely remember these sorts of conversations.
Sure, yeah. No, I didn't really feel that out of character to me, and I felt like the overall narrative was edifying and that they, were clearly friends outside of it as well, and they brought that energy, like we were talking about earlier. I think they brought that energy into the movie. I didn't find this particular film to be particularly disturbing in that regard, but I've certainly encountered other ones where I felt that way. One of them being the Florida Project.
Yeah.
I remember loving the movie, being blown away by the child acting in that. But that you're talking like 6, 7-year-olds, 5, 6-year-olds in that movie?
The 5, 6-year-olds,
yeah. And the acting is tremendous, and I would say like one of the most impressive things to me has always been amazing kid acting. But I remember thinking about that later, about like, what are the ethics of having a kid learn about these dark and disturbing complexities of the adult world as an actor in a movie? Like if that was your first time encountering those realities
and some of the sentences that they say.
Yeah, the things they say.
Like they're hysterical, but also that's a 6-year-old voice that I didn't say that.
And some of those
go
more like,
fuck your dad, you mullet-wearing asshole. That's line in the movie. That's line in the movie.
anyone with a heart should say that.
It's really funny. Yeah. But also,
it's great. They gave a 14-year-old that line and said, "Go run off into the world with it."
Yeah,
like that's yeah.
I think a lot of it is more me thinking of it as a dad now. It's like I really don't want my kids to be famous for saying "Go fuck your dad, you mullet wearing asshole." As great as that line is, as funny as that is, I don't want that from my kids for some reason. Maybe it's because I can only think of my kids as like pure angels right now.
I think of my kids
they're like 4 and 1.
I think of my kids as philosopher kings and queens.
I've never seen my daughter as anything less than 14, and we'll see how that plays out later in life. No, I think that's a good point. As for me, just picking up what you were saying, Dave, and what you were saying a little bit, Mike, too. Does it make me uncomfortable? No, because I know the important strictures that actors have to go through, especially when they're underage actors with their parents. I know there's like a lengthy process of submitting the script, reading it with the parents there, interviewing the kid about it, like really making sure that this kid can connect with this material. I think that the cast of kids they got is very specific for that. I mean, while this was the big break for most of them, like the biggest thing, I mean, it's the biggest thing that any of them have ever done, for sure, still. They all have gone on to show themselves to be very serious actors. I mean, like Jaden Martell before this was in St. Vincent, which is the movie about the misanthropic, maybe alcoholic Bill Murray. And he's Melissa McCarthy's son that he's the one raising, right? So he has experience with this sort of this kind of tone of script. And everyone else is very comfortable with. I mean, like Finn Wolfhard's in 3 seasons of Stranger Things. These are not unseasoned kids. These are also not kids that are raised outside of the acting machine. So that makes me a little bit more comfortable knowing that even as child actors, they see themselves truly as actors.
Yeah.
In the behind the scenes, they're more serious than their adult counterparts and talking about how they found the characters and how they developed them and how they spoke. And they're very conversant and lucid in the choices that they made and what the script made them feel. That really kind of sells me on that a little bit more.
I mean, I kind of feel like that's almost like saying they're already broken, so you don't feel bad about it. That's not to say that they are already broken, but I feel like that's what the argument is. It's like, well, they've already been in Hollywood. They've already been traumatized by some of the roles that they've played. So it's okay that they're being traumatized by this one.
That's not at all what I'm saying.
Okay, but I guess what I'm saying is that's basically the structure of that argument, I think.
I don't think I'm insisting that they have trauma. I think that their support system, whatever it is, has deemed that they will support them in producing this script.
Okay.
Which I think is still a very childlike script in a lot of ways. Not childish, but very childlike. And a lot of the stuff that they're asked to do is very much in keeping with their age. And I don't know, like I was just saying to Dave, like I remember saying things equivalent to this, saying language equivalent to this when I was that age. And I wouldn't say that if I was filmed doing that and I was being paid money to say it, if I would be traumatized by that.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not, I mean, like they talk a lot extensively about how the kids were introduced to Pennywise and how he didn't come in until halfway through production. And I think that's really fun. And the kids were like really excited and nervous about it. And it really just feels like this was a really good experience for everyone. Everyone had a great time getting the shit scared out of them.
Yeah.
Like Jake Dylan Grazer talks about being scared by Bill Skarsgård when he shows up in makeup for the first day, because the first day that he acted with him is the first day when he unfolds himself out of the fridge and then grabs him by the neck and is drooling all over him.
That's a scene to start with, right?
Yeah. So they started with that, and during cuts, Bill would be like, "Hey man, are you cool? Is everything all right?" And Bill talks about how Jake would just look at him and be like, "I love what you're doing with the character, man. I love what you're doing with the character. It's great. It's terrifying. It's awesome. Just keep it up, dude."
So you're more pointing to the fact that like these are seasoned actors who have they know the difference between reality and like this thing that they're pretending to do, and so they're able to encounter it without becoming traumatized by it or learning things that they shouldn't know or something like that.
Yeah,
that's more the argument rather than the other thing.
I'm not speaking to brokenness. I'm here speaking that they are people that were hired to do a job.
Yeah.
And they seem very capable, and I think they've proven themselves in this movie to be very capable of doing it. So I don't want to enter into a discussion of Hollywood as a whole and the way that they treat children actors, because we would be here for forever and we would not have enough examples to demonstrate how poorly that's been handled.
Yeah.
But at least for this production, I think it was handled very well. And in terms of how I feel about the thing overall, I would say that New Hollywood has done a very good job at introducing kids, especially into horror movies, because more and more kids are in more and more horror movies. A lot better than maybe has been done in the past. So when it comes to my viewing, that is what I'm thinking of, is where are we in time? Like, it's like watching The Adventures of Milo and Otis when you're a kid versus when you're an adult, and realizing as an adult that actually that was not filmed with the participation of PETA, and many of those dogs and cats died. Yeah. That's the difference.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. The Adventures of Milo and Otis, many dogs and cats, many Milos and many Otises died.
That is the most horrifying thing I have heard yet tonight.
Many.
What?
Yes.
As in,
like two or three?
More than 2 or 3.
Oh man, that's horrible.
Like, are we talking like 24?
Because
24 little Otises dead?
I mean, you're conjecturing.
We're running out of Otises.
But because it was filmed in under foreign rules, it was not subject to American rules of animal treatment.
It's horrible.
So that's what I would say in regards to this question. Is that
I guess when you put like a cat with a bear.
I mean, sometimes shit can happen. So what I'm saying though is that knowing what I know about the Hollywood studio system and how they treat minors or animals, minors are treated much better than animals still. Thank God. But knowing that, that's kind of the rule that I use, is like, when was this made? And then we can kind of go from there as to how I feel about it.
Yeah.
In general, I would say I'm totally fine with it, just because these actors are paid a lot of money and they agreed to it, and maybe their parents are using them, but it's a case by case basis. And I would assume the better for this. So I'm sorry, it's a long answer into a complicated question that I did not actually answer to my standards, because this is such a wide reaching kind of, I don't know, insight into abuses of a system.
I feel like there's so many ways that it can be. So I kind of come down in the it's complicated camp.
Just like
in this movie,
Nancy
like
Myers.
Yeah. In this movie, I didn't feel like at all. I don't know. I wasn't. I at no point was I like, oh man, I hope these kids are okay, because I felt they all. I know you can almost like see when actors are having a good time, and they clearly were having a good time in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think, what they've said about it in their interviews has made it clear. It is, I guess it's a little uncomfortable, but I think they're all like 14 or 13 when this is coming out. And I definitely was encountering the world the way that they are. I mean, there weren't any killer clowns. There weren't too many killer clowns in my life.
No, I mean, you lost 2 arms, you said 3?
Yeah. No, I didn't lose any. It was my toes.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it was my extra toes.
Yeah, you got traded. You were lucky.
Yeah. But this one specifically, no. At the same time, though, I would not want my daughters to be in this movie. I mean, as 4 and 2-year-olds, or maybe when they're 14, I'll be like, yeah, go for it. But
I mean, they must be very prepossessed individuals.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to be like, hey, this is, my kid definitely recognizes the distinction between, reality and this, and is able to manage it. But also, like, if you're acting too, like, so many movies, the way movies are filmed, like, it's not like they're going through it the way that we go through the movie, right? It's very separated. They're going for a long time making it.
Right.
What about you, Jesse?
Yeah.
What are your feelings?
Honestly, I've been pretty conflicted, but after hearing you guys kind of talk about it, I think it's put me at ease a little bit. Like, thinking back to, like, my gut reaction is that, like, all these actors are, they're all super comfortable. And I think it's like you were saying, that this isn't something that they haven't all experienced before. Like, everything that they're saying, everything that they're doing, everything that they're talking about, nothing's beyond, like, these kids' lives. Which is why they also seem like it seems like a really well put together movie. It's because, like, it feels so natural coming from them. Given that, and given the fact that they can separate reality from their character choices, and they are those professional actors like you're pointing out, Vito, I think that does make a difference. That does make me, like, way more comfortable knowing, in a way, I'm kind of watching not just kids but professionals do this, because they definitely do have that degree of professionalism just watching them. Like, a lot of them have, like, they have, like, little things down. Anyway, yeah. Overall, after hearing you guys talk about it, I think I'm comfortable with it.
Cool.
Nice. It's just like in yesteryear, watching stuff like The Goonies, or watching stuff like Home Alone, or watching stuff like I don't know, what's like another really young kid thing that would seem vaguely inappropriate.
I
mean, anyway,
I'm at a loss. I'm totally at a loss. We're at an hour and 35 minutes. And I'm at a loss for words, except for about how I'm at a loss for words. I can keep going about how I don't know what to say.
No, thanks, Chesterton.
If you want me to.
Jesse, got any follow-ups?
I think that's it for me. I think at this point, we gotta decide, though. Does this belong in the Dad Hall of Fame? Is this a dad movie? Dave, what do you think?
I would have to go yes, with the caveat that it would be obviously reserved for kids in this age group, because I do think that the overall themes are key and important themes as far as navigating the transition from childhood to adulthood, especially, as I mentioned earlier, when I first read the book, of getting to that stage of being aware of the deep imperfections of the adult world and how much is left unresolved in that world. I do think that I think, for one, the horror isn't that extreme, and it doesn't have the same oppressive darkness that a lot of horror does to me. And I think the ultimate messages of unity, togetherness, trust, friendship being what it takes to conquer fear. And that, in fact, you do need to conquer childhood fear in order to truly become an adult. Otherwise, you never really move out of it. And you can kind of see, I mean, not to get into it too much, but you can see that a little bit in some of the few adults that are really featured in the story are Eddie's mom, who's extremely overprotective and suffocating.
A
hypochondriac. So she's clearly fearful.
And also the one where she puts, like, all of her fears on him too. That's another.
She's projecting her fears, and she's destroying, sucking the life out of him. And obviously the Bev situation is complex, but I think there's definitely some fear and undealt with issues present in her father that he's projecting onto her. And no doubt.
Stands overprotective religious father,
yeah. So you don't really get too much contact with the adult world in this movie, but the little bit that you see is, to me, a lot of unresolved fears that are manifesting in projections and just kind of perpetuating that unhappiness on the childhood world too. So I think the fact
Bill's like disconnected parents, they're really disconnected from him too.
Well, they're all traumatized, right?
Yeah,
they have no idea how to be a family anymore.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. I mean, even from the beginning, like the mother playing that creepy piano.
Well, look, she thought it was pretty.
She ends up being it. So I mean, what's going on? I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, I would say all in all, I think the underlying themes outweigh the horror, and I would say, just with the caveat that it would be for, an early to mid high school crowd. I do think that I would consider this a dad movie for me.
Nice,
cool.
Yeah. How about you, Vito?
I would agree with the same kinds of caveats. This is definitely a high school kind of thing. This is definitely like, you want to have your friends over. Are you in the mood for a scary movie? I don't know if my daughter will like scary movies in her future. I'm not really going to push her. It's something I love very deeply, but I think there's a lot that can be misconstrued in horror, especially when viewed from a young age, because it's so elemental to the things that make people tick. I think it's best viewed from a time when you can deal with that. I mean, I think the reason I love horror so much is I was exposed to horror when I was way too young. And I've loved it ever since because of how much it unsettled me. And now in later years, it's kind of like what Stephen King talks about. Horror is a safe place to examine the things that really frighten you. You know, not killer clowns, but imposter syndrome, not demon spiders, but abandonment issues. In the same way that fantasy helps us when we're younger, horror, I think, helps us when we're older, because we're now accustomed to a certain level of stress and terror, and being able to experience that again while seeing actual catharsis to issues that we are disturbed by all the time is very helpful and very healthy for us as psychologically solid people. And I don't want to introduce that too young to a psyche that hasn't developed quite well enough to be able to see it in that light. So I would love it if I had a child that was developed enough to appreciate this movie. I just don't know if I have one. Yeah. So I would like to put it up on the dad wall with that caveat that it only applies to those kids that can deal with it in a good way.
I like that. I think I agree with that. I mean, I feel like this is a later high school, 17, 18-year-old movie that I'd show to my kids if they're able to deal with it after they've kind of gone through this period of their life. And so they can kind of look back on it with a certain sense of nostalgia, which I think that, I don't know, I felt like I brought to it, because I was like, oh yeah, this is like the rock fight. I'm like, oh, I did that. Sure. Like that was my life.
I've definitely been hit with a rock in the head. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've hit someone with a rock in the head and realized that there's consequences to actions.
Awesome, man. The consequences was they left me alone.
Yes. And yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think what Dave said, like the fact, just to kind of expand on what you said, I think, we didn't really talk about it a ton, but the idea of like, Pennywise says, you all float, or we all float here. That's his big thing. It's like, we're all floating here.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, like, what does that mean? And I think the idea behind it is that, like you see it kind of when he takes over Beverly and she's floating there. It's almost like the fears that you have and the trauma that you have when it commands you and controls you, isolates you completely, and you float within that trauma, right? And to get out of it, you need the friendships and the love of those around you. You need to share it with those around you, and you need to be that friend for other people. I think there's a really big contrast with Henry Bowers, because with him, he fully goes into the fear and the rage that he gets from his father.
Similarly traumatized childhood.
Yeah, from a similarly traumatized childhood. But what he gathers around himself is like a Lord of the Flies disunity, where everyone's there come together, but because they hate.
Yeah.
And they're finally conquered, as opposed to overcoming that trauma.
There's a great deleted scene where it shows him in his bedroom, and he's got on the wall like a 30-mile-per-hour sign that's full of bullet holes.
Oh, yeah.
But he has his shirt off, and he's applying cream to this X mark all along his back and his lower back of where his dad beat him.
Yeah, of course.
And he puts on his shirt, and he walks downstairs and goes to leave the front door, and his dad is sitting in a rocking chair, smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. And he says, "Where are you going?" He goes, "Out with the guys." And he goes, "Give me another beer." And the scene cuts to him leaving the house with his friends who have pulled up, and they're both in the front seat. And one friend says, "Hey," and he goes, "The fucking back seat." The guy goes, "Well, I was here first." He's getting the fucking back seat, and the kid gets in the back seat, and he gets in, and there's just this rage.
Yeah.
And he's so mad, and they go like, "How'd your dad handle you losing your knife?" And he goes, "That asshole knows I'd tear his head off if he ever laid a fucking hand on me." But that's not true, because you just saw actually what happened was he got the shit beat out of him. and then they see what's his name, Mike.
That's a good scene.
Go by with all the ground meat in his bike.
Yeah,
as he goes by, and they all see him, and he says, "Would you get the fuck out of here, please, and fucking thank you." And then they accelerate out of the driveway after Mike, and that's where you really see like, this is this kid's life. He has nowhere to go. He has all this aggression and sadness, and he must take it out on the losers. And later on, that's actually said in another deleted scene that I wish actually was in the movie. It shows his car outside of the house when the losers go in for the second time, all prepared. He's covered with blood because he has cut the throats of his two friends.
Holy shit.
He's murdered them in their car. Before he goes into the house. He's fully under the control of it.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
It's not in the theatrical.
It's not in the theatrical.
But it shows that he's killed his friends.
He's killed them.
And has gotten out to deal with the losers now.
Wow.
But yeah, just to kind of back up your point with two things that were not in the movie, but I think were really strong.
Well, yeah, that helps to elaborate that story, that character. That's really interesting. Yeah. So I mean, I think all of that, that makes it a potential dad movie. It's something that I really like. It's something that I think is going to help inform my parenting.
Yeah.
And might be something that I show to my kids. I hope to be able to show it to them at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe in their 20s, but
I mean, realistically, given our kids' personalities, that might be the time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. What about you, Jesse? Is this a dad movie?
Oh yeah, it's a dad movie.
Nice.
I think it's a dad movie in at least two ways. One, I think it is for the kids. Again, older kids, knowing my daughter probably when she's like 40 and finally able to watch anything.
Maybe 40.
There's a lot of water in
maybe.
There's a ton of water, dude.
It's a really wet movie. She hates water, I know.
Yeah, they all float. Yeah. They all float, though. Nobody sinks. They all float.
That is creepy shit, dude. Like, we all float here. What the fuck?
Oh, yeah. Actually, knowing that my wife can't watch this movie, I will probably never watch this movie with my daughter. So my son, I'm holding out hope.
Nice.
I think when he's a teenager, I think teenager is the appropriate time, like everybody else was saying, because like, you're dealing with trauma, and if you've been through it, it's nice to have a cathartic experience to know what to do with it. Not that I'm giving my kids trauma, at least I hope.
Just enough to make them funny.
If they get scared of like a painting that you have.
One can hope. But no. But yeah, no matter what, some crazy stuff always happens in everybody's life, and it's good to watch stories to learn how to deal with it. And this does help with just about every trauma, especially anything with death or So it can either help you go through it, or it can help you understand other people, right? If you get into these characters and you can finally understand why they're doing what they're doing, if you can understand why somebody is scared, then you'll understand why they're reacting. So horror in general is important for that reason, I think. Yeah. But also more than that, more than just like watching this with the kids, I just really like this movie. The whole time I was watching it, I was like, oh man, if like Vito and Mike and Dave were all here, we would be having such a good time right now.
Yes. I wish we were not recording remotely for this one. This would have been so much fun, man.
Yeah.
I would have. Oh, it's so much fun, and it's so. The lines which we've hardly gone into, are so funny. Like when Richie finds out so he's the only one in the group who has not encountered the crowd, he's just like, well, does a clown only come to virgins or something?
So why I haven't seen it?
Wait, Dave. Right here, I want to give Dave space for his favorite line because it's one of the best.
Yeah, I went with a Richie as well. When he says, I think Ben's talking. He's like, yeah, Derry used to be a beaver trappy town. Still is, am I right, boys? Just the deadness of it's like, Richie,
like Richie, read the room, dude.
Richie.
Just read the room.
There's that other one where they're in the sewer, and it's another Richie line, but they find a shoe, and it's like, I think it's one of the missing kids, Debbie or whatever.
Rascal.
Like, Debbie's running around in the sewers without a shoe on. Do you know
like, dude, come on, she's dead. Like, don't joke about it.
So many of his jokes, he like looks around and everyone's like, "What are you doing, dude? Like, not now.
Like, you have no sense.
Not here.
Of
Come
time
on,
or place.
Just, jeez.
Your best friend's brother just died.
Do you go to the same bathroom as your mom? Yeah. Well,
you probably have craps.
You probably have craps.
Do you want a kiss from me?
Oh, but
yeah, he had a fun. Yeah. I think he had a fun part.
Yeah, he had the best one. Like, but I think my favorite though is I just got to go with my man Eddie. Like, I love Richie. Richie's great, but Eddie for me is just like the embodiment of nervousness and anxiety.
He's so
and I really love that because I felt that I was Eddie inside as a kid, and that was exactly what was going on all the time. And I had friends that were exactly like Richie, and like, you got to suck the wound, dude. Come on, you don't even know what you're doing. And I was like, you know what the fuck you're talking about, okay? Okay, I know what I'm doing. Okay, I'm just gonna get this. I'm gonna get the wound. I'm gonna dress it, and here it is. Like, I went to the store and I got the stuff. And outside, I was like, yeah, man, it's cool. Like, I know what I'm doing. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I'm cool. I'm a cool guy.
I felt more like Ben. I was like definitely the fat kid in school.
Okay.
So I immediately like
were you in the library a lot?
Him. Yeah. No, actually, yeah, I was.
I mean, well,
my sister and I were just remembering this. Like, we would like go to the library. And like, we were hiding from our friends, and we would like bump into each other and be like, "What are you doing here? Like, why are you in my library?"
Well, look, Mike, you are the poet laureate. No one would expect you not to be on the podcast as the library boy.
That was I was the library boy. People definitely called me Tits. Still do, but
that's rough. I mean, it's nice though now.
I'm just jealous.
I'm sorry about last weekend.
I love that scene when Bev, like when he encounters like Bev, like that's that. I felt that.
Oh, like, he's listening to New Kid on the Block.
Yeah, he's listening
with this like decoupage or whatever he has.
And he's just like dropping it everywhere. It's so great.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jesse, you were talking.
Sorry, buddy.
Well, now I'm trying to figure out. I think I would have been Stan. I always felt a little more like Stanley. Stanley's always a little more awkward, and like you get the sense that he's rational. So like a lot of things around him upset him if things are a little bit off. That's how I felt as a kid.
Wow.
How about you, Dave?
Yeah.
Which one of these characters are you?
What are you? Who are you even?
I would have to say.
You can do a double. That's okay.
I feel like you're Ben.
I was going to say that I identified a lot with Ben.
Yeah.
Sure. And I actually felt like, as a bit of just kind of a side point, I thought that Ben got kind of cheated a little bit in the movie.
Okay.
Because after writing that beautiful poem for Bev, January Embers, and then basically delivering True Love's kiss that saves her from floating in the spell of the monster.
Yeah.
Then he pretty much just gets shunted off stage at the end, and Bill ends up with the girl. And I kind of felt like, with the way that the movie was structured, I felt like it wasn't
the stutter was it.
Yeah, it must have been. Yeah, I felt like it was kind of an undeserved getting the girl for Bill.
She thought all of the nice things that were done to her were Bill, and he did some nice things.
He did very few nice things though in comparison to Ben.
Yeah, Ben did a lot of. He was like, "Hey, I recognize that you are hurt."
Yes,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I love you.
Like he was kind of the first one to like actually get Bev.
Yes.
Too. So I felt like that was unfair that he kind of just was summarily just moved off stage.
That comes up in the second one.
Yeah.
That comes up in the second one because Ben comes back and guess what? Ladies and gentlemen, Ben is hot.
That's right. That was my favorite part.
Yeah,
of the
definitely.
As he should be.
You deserved it. I guess, I identify a lot with Ben. I feel like I wouldn't necessarily like try to grab all of like his hero-like qualities, but I feel like I definitely identified with Bill in some ways. Of a lot of times feeling at that age of thinking a little bit longer about something that was said before, and then not having the timing or the quickness to speak up on what had occurred to me or what I saw, and things had already moved on. To the point where like I didn't literally have a stutter, but a lot of times I'd feel that way, that like I couldn't get out what I really wanted to say or the observation that I had spent time thinking about, and things had already passed on.
Sure.
I feel like I identified a lot with that with Bill.
Well, guys, I think we've already decided this is unanimously a dad movie. It's on the wall of fame. Everybody really likes this. I think it's a great introductory horror movie. We are at an hour and 50 something minutes right now.
Longest episode ever.
That's wild.
About it. I think it's about time that we all say goodbye to our lovely listeners. I assume you're lovely. I don't know.
I mean, but I just want to say just real quick, just before we say goodbye, totally right, Jesse. But this movie is so much fun. This story is so much fun because there's a whole other segment that we didn't even do that in the course of the episode just proved not to have a place here. There's so much more to talk about in regards to it. So if you liked this episode, please let us know. Please comment. We'd really appreciate comments. Right now, we're up on Apple Podcasts. We're up pretty much everywhere you can get a podcast now. I mean, we're on Spotify, we're on TuneIn, we're on Amazon. You can find us in the Google Index. We're on CastBox. We're on like so many places.
I think we're everywhere.
I mean, please let us.
Podcasts are sold.
I mean, please let us know if we're somewhere where you listen to podcasts where we're not, and we will get on there post haste. But also, what's really important is that you like and you give a comment, you give some kind of review, even if it's a quick sentence, and give us like a star rating if that's available, especially for Apple Podcasts. It's really important.
We really love to hear what you have to say too. Anything that you take issue with, anything that you really love about us, mostly what you love about us.
Yeah. Although I'll take all the criticisms in the world, and because that'll help make this show better. And that's all that we're trying to do here. And if you want to hear more about it, well, there's another It Chapter 2. So if you guys want to hear about it, please let us know you want to hear about it, because we'd love to talk about it some more, even if it's with criticisms this time.
Yeah, because to be honest, It Chapter 2 is not a thing right now. It's not even close to being on our radar. We have dozens of other movies. But if you guys want it to be, we'll put it there. I have to admit, I watched the last scene of It Chapter 2 like on my phone or whatever, and I was kind of laughing. So it would be a very interesting podcast.
But if that's something that the people want, we are here to hear your voice. And so far, I mean, you've really helped us out a lot by listening to the show and seemingly to like the show. But just really hit us with some of those likes and some of those reviews and some of those ratings if you can. You know, we'd really appreciate that. That is exactly the kind of exposure that we want for this show. Is just to know out there that people like it and they're not just listening. So
yeah, guys. So if you like it, subscribe, follow, like, comment, do all that stuff. But we're signing out in the meantime. I'm Jesse.
I'm Vito.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Dave.
We are Not Your Father's Movies, signing out.
Hey everyone, this is Mike from Not Your Father's Movies. Thank you so much for listening. If you've got any questions on tonight's episode, thoughts on movies that should or should not be in the dad canon, and most importantly, things Vito got wrong, we'd literally love to hear from you. Shoot us an email with anything you got at notyourfathersmovies@gmail.com. That's notyourfathersmovies@gmail.com. And if that's not enough for you and you want more ways to listen to us, reach us, share us, and support us, check out our website at nyfm.podbean.com. That's nyfm.podbean.com. Shout out to Max Agros for our sick theme music. Thank you, Max, and thank you all again for listening to us. Have a great night.